KATSEYE was created as a global girl group, handpicked, trained, and promoted with one clear goal: to take over the international scene. But somehow, Blackpink, a K-pop girl group that debuted about 8 years ago, feels more global, even when KATSEYE sings in English and promotes in the West. Why is that? That's what we're gonna talk about today. Now, I'm not gonna compare Blackpink's entire 8-year career to a group that debuted a year ago. That just wouldn't be fair. Instead, I'm comparing Blackpink's debut era around 2016 to 2018 to KATSEYE's current rollout. Because when you line them up side by side, you can really see the difference in how their brands were built, what worked, what didn't, and why one just clicked faster with a global audience. And the reason I picked Blackpink wasn't to necessarily drag KATSEYE down. If anything, Blackpink was a perfect case study. They started in Korea and cracked the Western market effortlessly and built a brand that felt sharp, distinct, and instantly recognizable, even in those early years. So no, this isn't a hate video, and I actually think KATSEYE has a lot of potential, and I'm just very curious to see where they go from here. But I do think that there's something interesting to be said about why their brand still feels off to some people, especially when you put it next to a group that just got it right from the beginning. Let's get into it. Okay, so let's talk about group size for a second. Blackpink is a clean, tight 4-member group. Easy to remember, easy to market, and easy for fans to latch onto. Everyone got their role, their vibe, and it just clicks. KATSEYE, on the other hand, has 6 members, which is not a bad thing at all, but it's definitely something that feels a little bit more foreign to the Western pop scene. See, Western groups usually roll with smaller lineups, like 3 to 5 members, so when a group comes out with 6 or more, casual listeners might go, wait, that's a lot. And if you think about it, K-pop is the one who introduced the West to this huge amounts of groups. We're talking 7, 9, and sometimes as big as 24. So it's not like having 6 members is this huge deal breaker. Big groups like the Pussycat Dolls have proven that bigger lineups can work in the West too, but it's definitely still a fresh concept for the Western audience to get used to. What's interesting is that this might be a thing that KATSEYE's team is actually underestimating, like how Western audience generally expect smaller groups, and that can affect how relatable or digestible the group feels at first glance. Alright, let's talk identity, because this is where things really start to separate from a group that's just trendy to a group that really has brand power. Now, to their credit, KATSEYE did try to give each member a clear identity before debut, assigning them different symbols to represent their personalities. I really like the idea behind this, like how each member has a symbol that's supposed to represent something about them, like Sophia's dream anchor that represents her strong leadership, for example.
My charm is a dream anchor, which represents stable core, so it's stability and navigation. And I feel like I resonated with this charm because I feel like I'm a support system for those around me that I love and reaching our dreams and aspirations.
It shows they put thought into giving each member an identity, but honestly, it's not that memorable. If I saw all these charms without explanation, I'd probably forget who's who and what each symbol stands for. It seems that there needed to be a bit more focused or a clearer way to connect the symbols to the members' personalities. Either they could have gone deeper into why these symbols actually matter, or they could have just kept it simple so it's easier to remember, as it does stand out. It kind of feels like a cute idea that got a bit lost, like you could totally miss it and still understand the group just fine. Again, not a massive problem, just an observation on why the group might feel a little different or harder to latch onto. Blackpink came out the gate with an identity so strong you just couldn't ignore it. Even their name told you who they were: black and pink, tough and pretty, glam and gritty. Their duality was their whole thing. And that branding didn't only show up in their visuals or stage outfits, it showed up in their music too. Their music had this cool girl energy that felt high fashion but still edgy, like they knew exactly who they were and made sure we did too. Now let's look at KATSEYE. Visually, stunning, no question. But when it comes to branding, I feel like I'm still figuring out who they actually are. Like, what's the concept tying everything together? What's the story I'm supposed to latch onto? Their debut song debuted. yes, it's actually called Debut, was a safe start. Very polished, very performance ready, so not bad at all, but it didn't really give me much to remember. Touch came next and was definitely stronger. Great song, it was a really smart choice, it was clean, catchy and TikTok friendly, and it got people listening. But even then, it still felt like they were playing it safe, like they were aiming for more appealing than iconic. Then they dropped the Sis AP, and while the title is very clever, the songs felt like different puzzle pieces from different boxes. The vibes didn't really match and the messaging got lost. And then we got Beautiful Chaos, which the name kind of says it all. It's that whole trend of trying to label something as chaotic or unpredictable just as a way to explain why the concept feels all over the place. Like sometimes artists say the album is a little bit of everything, it doesn't fit one box. But what it usually ends up being is we didn't pick a lane. And when you're a new group, not having a lane doesn't read as creative. It just feels confusing. It doesn't build a solid audience or give your current one anything to hold on to. They do have moments where the branding does shine through. Gnarly is a great example. That song felt like personality. It had this raw, messy, and hyper pop energy to it. It actually felt different to everything else they've done before. And it made people stop and go, okay, wait, who is this? It stood out in the best way possible. But that's kind of the problem, right? When the one song that feels like you has nothing in common with the others, that's not identity, that's just noise. And here's the thing. Trendy confusion doesn't build legacy. It can work short time, especially when a group is backed by a huge platform like Hype. But long-term success needs a clear and recognizable brand that the audience can grow with. And right now, KATSEYE is still figuring that out. They have potential. So much of it. But they don't need more aesthetics or scattered messages. They need a solid brand that ties their sound, style, and personalities all together. Because right now, we're getting a little bit of everything and not enough of someone. One thing that really stands out with KATSEYE is how incredible diverse they are.
I love how they're very diverse. It's a very diverse girl group.
KATSEYE is the most diverse girl group I've ever seen.
What they represent is so beautiful, like ethnically, diversity, like sexuality, like everything. Like I just love that they are just unapologetic themselves.
And that's a huge win. You can see it right away. And honestly, that's something rare and powerful in girl groups today. But here's where things get tricky. Instead of letting the diversity naturally shine as a part of who they are, they made it the main brand message. It started to feel less like a creative choice and more like a press release headline. It's like they didn't fully trust the audience to notice or appreciate the representation unless they shouted that they were global. That approach ended up feeling surface level rather than deep. What they could have done instead, rather than making the global girl group label the centerpiece of their identity, they could have treated it more like a given, something you see and feel without having to explain over and over. That diversity could have been a rich backdrop for stories that really connect, like who these girls are, what makes each of them unique, how their personalities and styles blend together. In the West, it's actually pretty rare to see a girl group where every member represents a different culture. That alone is powerful. But KATSEYE missed a chance to build emotional storytelling around those identities, and instead focus mostly on the global label itself. And honestly, that just doesn't land the same way. At the end of the day, I'm not here to hate. I'm a brand strategist and I just love unpacking how different brand choices land with different audiences. This kind of stuff is fun to me. It's never about tearing anyone down. It's just about observing what works, what doesn't, and what could be. And look, KATSEYE is brand new. A shaky start doesn't mean a shaky future. We've seen so many artists start off uncertain and eventually become legends. So I'm not counting them out. Not even close. Honestly, part of what makes KATSEYE so interesting is how unpredictable they are. One minute they're promoting in Korea and the next they could be in the US or Europe. And who knows, maybe this slightly confusing rollout is part of the plan. Maybe they're building something long-term and global, but in a way we haven't seen before. Right now though, their brand identity feels like it's speaking two languages at once, and not everybody is fluent in both. That doesn't mean it can't work. It just means it needs clarity. Because when a group knows exactly who they are, the world starts to know too.